us a little bit about how you write, where you get your inspiration, how you work?
There's no one answer to that, Anne. When I wrote A Greater World, when I started that off, I hadn't a clue about what was going to happen. About halfway through writing it, I still hadn't got a clue about what was going to happen. And in fact, I was getting slightly worried about where it was going to go. So I decided to write the end in the middle. So I wrote the ending, and then I worked my way from the middle to the ending, and then went back and redid things later. So that was a very open, unpredictable process. On the other hand, with the book that I'm writing now, which is actually set in the 1930s and 40s, I had the whole plot worked out before I wrote a word. And I thought, this is going to be great. It's going to be so much easier. But it hasn't worked out like that, because I keep thinking it's all ironed out, and then it goes off in a somewhat different direction, or the characters take it off in a somewhat different direction. That makes it harder.
Are you a disciplined writer? I mean, do you get up in the morning and say, right, I want to write this many thousand words before lunch, or whatever? And are you a hard taskmaster on yourself?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I don't write every day. I write most days. I try to write at least 1,000 words a day, and I've got a little device on my writing program that measures that. It sets the target and tells me when I've done it. But then on a good day, I'll just keep on and on and on. And then on the days when I don't write, I don't beat myself up about it. I just say, right, I'm ruminating, because it's with me all the time. You know, when I go to bed, when I'm dreaming, when I'm catching the bus or taking the tube, I'm thinking about it all the time. So if I'm not actually hammering the keyboard, I'm not too worried about it.
Well, certainly to me that sounds very disciplined, but I understand you may be disciplined, but some of your characters aren't, and that they take themselves off in different directions no matter what you do to try and corral them.
Yes, that does happen. I mean, in A Greater World, one of the main characters, who I started off wanting to be pretty, I don't want to give too much away, but a pretty bad guy, and by the end of the book he'd kind of pulled me along in a somewhat different way. The book I'm writing now, there's a guy who is a bit of a wimp, and just suddenly he's not having it. He's started stamping his little foot and exerting his authority, and I'm kind of powerless to resist, really. And the same with the heroine. At one point I suddenly found she was getting symptoms of what I can only imagine was likely to turn into anorexia, and I kept pulling her the other way, and she wasn't having it. Anyway, I had a big battle, and I think I've won. So yes, it can be tough, because they do end up having a mind of their own, and that's right. They've got to be real people. So I think about them. I sometimes talk to them. I often have images that remind me of them. And that all helps.
That, to me, seems to be something that taps very much into, if you like, the intuitive side of a writer, you know, feeling the character's direction. But by the same token, because both in your first book and your second, you're setting them historically, you also do a tremendous amount of really robust research to get the period and the dates and the context right.
Yes, and I think that's particularly important with dialogue. It's so easy to let a word or an expression trip in, so I am constantly checking etymological dictionaries to make sure that, you know, that whatever that expression was extant at the time, because there's nothing that makes you sit upright so much as something that is completely inappropriate to the period. I have found, though, that there are expressions that are absolutely appropriate to the period, but people reading them now think they wouldn't have said that then, and in fact, yes, they would. So occasionally, when a lot of people feel like that, I might pull it back. But no, yes, generally, I do a lot of research into clothing, into places, into world events, so that I have a real sense, even if it doesn't get mentioned in the book, I have a real sense of what was going on and what was on the news and what music people were listening to, what films they were going to see, all that type of thing. It's really, really important that I have it to just get a flavour.